They say knowledge is power, but in the ancient world, knowledge was danger, the kind of danger that could destroy empires, rewrite gods, and make kings tremble across deserts, temples, and lost libraries. Pieces of forbidden wisdom once shaped the destiny of mankind. From Egypt to Babylon, from Greece to the Mayan jungles, ancient rulers tried to bury truths too powerful for ordinary men to hold. They burned scrolls, silenced scholars, and erased civilizations, yet the echoes of that forbidden knowledge still whisper through the ruins, waiting to be found. In every age, knowledge has been the sharpest weapon. It builds empires and destroys them. It lifts men to greatness and condemns them to silence. In the ancient world, knowledge was not shared. It was guarded, hidden, sealed behind stone walls and sacred symbols. Only the chosen few were allowed to read the codes of the universe. The priests, the scribes, the astronomers, they carried the keys to the heavens and the secrets of creation, while the rest of the world was kept in darkness. In Egypt, the priests of Heliopolis studied the stars and mapped the sky. They recorded the paths of planets, the rhythm of the Nile, and the mystery of life and death. But they never told the people what they knew. Their knowledge gave them power over pharaohs. It shaped laws, harvests, and even wars. They believed wisdom was not meant for all, only for those strong enough to control it. Across the deserts of Mesopotamia, the scribes of Babylon carved their knowledge into clay tablets, thousands of them filled with mathematics, medicine, and star charts. They discovered the movements of Jupiter, predicted eclipses, measured time and space with terrifying precision. Yet those who questioned their authority were punished. Knowledge was sacred, but also forbidden. It could bless or curse depending on who held it. In Greece, philosophers whispered that true power was not in the sword, but in the mind. Socrates questioned the gods and was executed for it. Plato built the academy to preserve wisdom, but he too warned that knowledge in the wrong hands could destroy the soul. Even the birthplace of reason, truth, was dangerous. Those who challenged divine order faced exile or death. The same story repeated through centuries. Those who sought too much knowledge vanished from the records. Far across the ocean, in the jungles of the Maya, scribes carved secrets into stone codices filled with cosmic patterns and mathematical precision. They knew the cycles of the planets and the secrets of time itself. When invaders came, those books were burned. The fire erased centuries of wisdom, because it threatened the power of new kings. Knowledge was again the victim of fear. The ancient world learned early that knowledge is never neutral. It can free or enslave. It can create gods or overthrow them. The keepers of secrets became the most powerful men alive. While the common people prayed to mysteries they would never understand, temples became libraries guarded like fortresses. Scrolls were chained to tables. Languages were encoded so that only the elite could read them. The more sacred the text, the deeper it was hidden. And yet knowledge always finds a way to survive. When Alexandria burned, scholars fled carrying fragments of books that would later ignite the Renaissance. When Babylon fell, its tablets slept under the earth, waiting to be uncovered by archaeologists. When the Mayan codices turned to ash, a few survived, hidden by those who understood their value. Every time power tried to silence knowledge, the truth buried itself, waiting for the right moment to rise again. The power of knowledge has always been both light and shadow. The ancient kings knew this. They built empires on secrets and ruled through mystery. They controlled what people could know, because knowledge is the first step to freedom, and freedom is what tyrants fear most. Even now the ruins whisper that struggle. The shattered stones of libraries, the burned papyrus scrolls, the missing codices, they all tell the same story. Mankind has always fought for control over truth, and those who hold it shape the destiny of the world. So as the dust settles over forgotten temples and lost cities, one question remains: who decides what we are allowed to know, and how much of the ancient truth still lies hidden beneath the sands, waiting to return? When power fears knowledge, destruction always follows. History remembers the names of conquerors, but forgets the libraries they burned. Behind every empire that rose, there was a library that fell. Behind every throne built on lies, there was a truth erased in the flames. The ancient world once held the wisdom of the stars, the secrets of healing, and the codes of creation, but greed and fear turned that light into ash. The first great tragedy was Alexandria, the shining heart of knowledge standing by the Mediterranean. It held scrolls from every corner of the known world, the wisdom of Egypt, Greece, Persia, and India. Thousands of scholars studied their decoding mysteries of the heavens, medicine, and the human spirit. It was said that anyone who entered its halls would never see the world the same again, but power saw danger in that light rulers feared. What free minds could do, armies came, and the fire followed scrolls. Turned to smoke, and centuries of learning vanished into the wind. They say it burned more than one. Some blame Caesar, others blame religious zealots. But the truth is, simpler knowledge had become too powerful. Kings and priests want to control over belief. And when truth could no longer be controlled, it was destroyed. Alexandria was not just a building, it was a memory of the ancient world. And its loss was like cutting the mind of humanity in half. Far to the east, another purge began when the first emperor, China Qin Shi Huang, ordered the burning of books and the burying of scholars. He wanted one empire, one belief, one voice. Anything that questioned him was erased. History, philosophy, and science all fed to the flames of scholars who resisted were executed, buried alive. So their words could never rise again. What remained was silence of forced obedience that lasted for generations. In the lands of the Maya, the destruction came centuries later when invaders arrived from across the sea. They saw the codices of the Mayan scribes' books filled with strange symbols and calculations of the stars. They called them works of the devil and threw them into fire. Only 3 or 4 codices survived out of thousands. The rest turned to smoke, rising over jungles as a memory of civilization was erased. The same story repeated in Mesopotamia, where temples that once recorded the movement of planets were stripped of their tablets. Looters smashed the stones that held the secrets of the first mathematicians, and astronomers, those broken fragments, still lie buried in the desert sands, waiting for voices that will never return. Each act of destruction was not just about power. It was about control over truth. Rulers understood that as long as people remained ignorant, they could be ruled easily. Knowledge was rebellion. Understanding was freedom. And so, to protect their empires, they silenced the thinkers, burned the books, and declared wisdom to be sin. But knowledge is not so easily killed. The hides and symbols and songs and oral traditions passed from one generation to another. What survived at Alexandria reappeared centuries later in Arab libraries. What escaped the Mayan fires was remembered in carvings on temple walls. What lived through Qin's purge was whispered through poetry, and hidden text truth always finds a shadow to hide in waiting for time to reveal it again. And so the Great Destruction became both tragedy and prophecy, a reminder that every time humanity rises toward enlightenment, fear follows behind with fire and chains to pull it back down. Yet the ashes of burned books still glow. They still whisper in the winds across deserts and oceans, saying that nothing stays buried forever. One day, perhaps those who seek the truth will uncover all that was lost or destroyed, scrolls of forgotten formulas, the maps of the stars, the knowledge of life itself. Because no empire, no king, and no flame can erase the hunger for understanding that lives in the human soul. When the flames of destruction faded, the world entered darkness, but not silence. Even as libraries burned and scrolls turned to dust, there were those who refused to forget. Across deserts and seized fragments of forbidden wisdom, began to move quietly from one hand to another, from one civilization to the next. The knowledge that kings try to destroy, refuse to die. In the ruins of the old Greek world, after the fall of Athens and the decline of Rome, a few scholars hid what they could: Plato's dialogues, Aristotle's works, Pythagoras' numbers, Euclid's geometry. Those pages traveled like whispers across time, copied by hand, hidden in monasteries, carried by traders through deserts, and seized. The ancient Greek philosophers had once said that truth was eternal, and now that truth waited for a new home. That home rose in the east under the golden light of the Arab world, where scholars saw knowledge not as a threat, but as a gift. In the cities of Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo, new libraries rose higher than temples. A house of wisdom in Baghdad became what Alexandria once was, a sanctuary for the mind scholars from Persia, India, Greece, and Egypt gathered there, speaking different languages, but sharing one purpose: to understand creation itself. They translated Greek texts into Arabic, preserving the thoughts of philosophers that Europe had forgotten for centuries. Aristotle's logic became the foundation of Islamic philosophy. Pythagoras' numbers shaped their astronomy and mathematics, while Hippocrates and Galen guided their medicine. They did not just copy, they expanded, they experimented, they questioned the heavens through glass and sand, measuring time and distance with tools of their own making. While the West slept through the dark ages, the Arab scholars looked at the stars. They built observatories, mapped the skies, and calculated planetary motion with astonishing accuracy. They gave names to the stars that still shine on modern maps: Altair, Aldebaran, Betelgeuse, their sounds echoing the ancient language of discovery. They kept the flame alive not by war, but by wisdom. In this golden age of knowledge, men like Al-Khwarizmi wrote the first works on algebra. Al-Razi explored chemistry and medicine. Ibn Sina, known later as Avicenna, wrote the canon of medicine, which guided doctors for 600 years. Their work was a bridge between worlds, a link connecting the lost libraries of the past to the future. Yet even they knew that their gift was borrowed from older hands, from Greece, Egypt, Babylon, from civilizations buried under dust. The wisdom of the Greeks lived again through the Arabs, and when time turned the wheel once more, it traveled back west. In the 12th century, European scholars rediscovered those Arabic texts in Spain and Sicily, and began to translate them back into Latin. They called it the rebirth of Renaissance, but the truth was it was a return to knowledge they thought new was ancient, reborn through Arab hands. In the quiet halls of Baghdad's House of Wisdom, the scholars had preserved not just books, but the spirit of curiosity. They believed that understanding creation was a way to know the Creator, and so they searched the heavens not for conquest, but for meaning. They debated science and faith side by side, seeing no contradiction between reason and belief, that harmony kept their civilization strong when others fell to darkness. But like every light, there's two-faced shadow. Mongol armies stormed Baghdad in 1258, and the Tigris ran black with the Inca drowned books. The House of Wisdom was destroyed, the same pattern repeating again, fear-consuming enlightenment. Yet even then the knowledge did not vanish. It had already crossed continents, carried in memory and manuscripts to Europe, where it sparked the fires of the Renaissance and changed the world forever. So the lost teachings were never truly lost. They were guarded by the Greeks, reborn by the Arabs, and passed to the West through courage and devotion. It was proof that no matter how many times empires fall, knowledge finds a way to rise again. Because truth belongs to no king, no religion, no empire. It belongs to humanity. And in that endless journey of wisdom, the story of the ancient world continues. The torch passed from hand to hand, from Athens to Baghdad, from Cairo to Florence, until it lights the world once more, reminding us that knowledge can be delayed but never destroyed. The world was never the same after the flame returned to the West. What began as whispers in ancient temples and translations in desert halls erupted into the greatest explosion of knowledge humanity had ever seen. The Renaissance was not just a rebirth, it was a revelation. In the 15th century, men like Leonardo da Vinci began seeing the world through eyes that ancient Greeks would have recognized not through faith alone, but through curiosity, to the hunger to know how everything worked. Leonardo dissected bodies, built flying machines, and studied the stars. He was called a genius, but in truth, he was a continuation of a chain that stretched back thousands of years from the scrolls of Egypt to the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. His notebooks were filled with ideas that once would have been burned as heresy. Then came Galileo, the man who dared to look up when everyone was told to look down. He pointed his telescope at the heavens and proved that Earth was not the center of the universe, that we were not the rulers of the cosmos, but part of its vast machinery. For that he was silenced the same way ancient scholars were silenced long before him. But history would not forget. The forbidden knowledge that had once been hidden in secret chambers was now being printed and spread across Europe. The printing press became the new weapon of truth. It multiplied the words that kings and priests could no longer destroy, and by the 17th century, knowledge was unstoppable. Isaac Newton carried the torch next. He studied the stars in motion the same way ancient Babylonian astronomers once charted the skies, as laws of gravity and motion became the foundation of modern physics. Yet even Newton whispered of deeper things in secret journals. He wrote about alchemy, ancient magic, and the hidden patterns of nature. He believed the universe spoke in symbols and numbers the same way the ancients had once. Believed the forbidden knowledge was never truly gone, it had only changed form. As centuries passed, that ancient curiosity evolved into the modern world. The same quest that once built pyramids and temples now built rockets and microscopes. Humanity entered the age of science, but the roots of that science were ancient. When we split the atom, we echoed the words of philosophers who spoke of invisible particles. When we reached the moon, we fulfilled the dreams written on stone tablets by Sumerian priests. When we decoded DNA, we uncover what the ancients called the Book of Life. Every discovery was a memory resurfacing from the ruins of time. But even now the story isn't finished, because the forbidden knowledge has never truly been free. Every age has its gatekeepers, every empire its secrets. From ancient Egypt's mystery schools to secret Cold War laboratories, humanity has always hidden what it fears most. Truths that could change everything. In the modern world, information moves faster than ever, yet the deeper truths remain buried in classified vaults, lost archives, and digital shadows. We live in an age where knowledge is infinite, yet understanding is still rare. Just like the ancients who once gazed at the stars and wondered who they were, we are still searching, still decoding the symbols left behind. The story of forbidden knowledge is not about the past. It's about us, about our endless hunger to know more, and the fear of what happens when we do. From the first spark of fire to artificial intelligence, from stone carvings to quantum code, we're still walking the same path carved by those who came before. And maybe that's the real secret. The knowledge was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to be rediscovered again and again by those brave enough to seek it, because every time humanity dares to ask why, we step closer to becoming what the ancients once dreamed of, gods of our own creation. The story ends where it began, not in darkness, but in flame, the flame of curiosity that burns across time, whispering one message to every generation that dares to listen. Seek the truth, even if it's forbidden.